Angie Nixon, who Florida state rep, she wins this race for the nomination for the Senate, raising over only $1 million compared to Alexander Vindman, who for a time was a household name.
Angie Nixon was a better candidate who ran a better campaign, and she won.
Also, black voters made a big difference in that.
100%.
The other one for his twin brother ran for Congress in Virginia and won successfully. So it is, this is definitely going to take Florida off the board.
But doesn't this lend
Democrats.
credence to Donald Trump's narrative that the DSA is a national threat? That you can't really talk about this as a New York thing or a Seattle thing or a Colorado thing. It's a national thing. Therefore, we have to nationalize the socialist.
I heard Ms. Nixon say, well, it's not about labels, which I find curious, and she joined the Socialist Party just this summer. She affixed the label to herself, only now to say, well, it's not really about labels. I actually think Ashley Moody's remarks were dead on. She's just reading out of the Democratic Socialist platform. When you align yourself with people who fundamentally would like to rip, what we know is how America works out root and branch, you're kind of anti-American.
Tonight on CNN, Angie Nixon just pulled off a major Democratic primary upset after being massively outspent. But now comes the harder question. Can a grassroots progressive campaign actually win statewide? And Scott Jennings says the Republicans already know exactly how they're going to attack her.
Let's talk about Angie Nixon, because she pulled no punches, minced no words. Ashley, do you think that she has a shot in a state like Florida?
Can I say no? I mean,
you can say whatever
Florida.
you want. It's truthful.
It's Florida. I mean, she won the race I think she could win, which was primary race in the Democratic primary. She's a better political athlete than Vindman is. Yeah. She was outspent 35 times. I think what was interesting though, she only spent $60,000, and none of it was on TV, none of it was on broadcast, none of it was on cable. She ran a purely grassroots campaign, and we've seen that across the country where money is there's limitations to money now. There's limitations to endorsements. We just talked about Donald Trump's endorsements, endorsed candidates losing, and it seems like now what the winning formula is going back to the basics, and she went back to the basics. She's from Florida, she's of Florida, and it worked. But I think it only worked for the primary, because you have to appeal to a broader audience when you're running statewide in a state like Florida, and I'm not sure she's got the ability to do that.
Let's look at the numbers, because Mark, you're a resident Floridian tonight. I mean, look at these numbers, everyone. This is really, really telling. Retired Lieutenant Colonel Alex Vindman did outraise and outspent Angie Nixon and also Senator Ashley Moody, and he lost. What does that tell you?
He was a terrible candidate. It's difficult for me to put that in words. In some of our conference calls at Axios, I would just start to rant about it. Like I was almost offended by his just inability to campaign properly.
He ran a very, very horrible campaign. I almost didn't know who the guy was at all. The majority of the time, Florida was just talking about Nixon, maybe the Democrats were just pushing the black woman because that's what the Democrats do. roll the clip. Maybe they were just pushing.
How did he do it? Yeah.
Well, it's more like, how did he not do it? I don't really know where that money was spent, because you didn't really see him on television. You didn't really see him in the community. You didn't see him in mailers. You didn't see him in text messages. There was no presence. About 7 days ago, in preparation for today, I started to think, okay, what does the polling show? And I couldn't find any polling, which is a very rare thing in a statewide election in Florida, something of this import, a Senate seat. And I called a number of pollsters, and everyone's like, no, we're just not paying attention to it. And I realized, well, let's see. I'm not seeing Vindman really campaign. He has no real roots here. He's essentially sort of carpetbag.
The Democrat Party, of course, they're the majority of the Democrat Party is voting for the minority, the black woman. No one's thinking about this guy, even though he probably had a good message and he probably had great things to offer the Democrat Party, but he's not a Democrat socialist, and that's why he didn't win. The new Democrat Party is the Democrat Socialists of America. That's the only party that's going to win state to state. Roll it.
Bagged here. I didn't even know the guy lived in the state. I thought, like his brothers in Congress, he lived in Virginia. And so then I started to think, well, Angie Nixon's a known commodity. She comes from Jacksonville, which is a large media market with a lot of voters. She has an active coterie of progressive supporters who are very into her. And she made her presence known on social media. And a lot of Democrats just didn't know who she was and who he was, including my own wife, who is a longtime Democratic voter. She was not contacted by either campaign. Voters like that walked into the polls, Democratic voters, and they saw a man they didn't know and a woman they didn't know. And a lot of them voted for the woman they didn't know. A lot of progressives showed up because they wanted to vote for the progressive. And a lot of people just didn't show. It was a pretty low turnout primary. All of these things combined together very well for her. Not to take away from her, I agree she was certainly the superior political athlete. Angie Nixon was a better candidate who ran a better campaign, and she won.
Also, black voters made a big difference in that
100%.
race. Vindman was polling in
Here comes the race card.
performing poorly with black voters. It became a national story, in fact, and she, the very opposite of that. And her last campaign stop was in a black church. I mean, she literally has been in that community, engrossed in it for years. So she had that advantage. One, it's a combination of black voters, progressives, and then some white progressive voters.
Sure,
There's
28%
an
of the
interesting notion, though, then, because on the one hand, you don't want to diminish what her accomplishment is or her track record and her resume. On the other hand, it sounds like this race might not be predictive, a larger, much more involved one, but how are Republicans going to play this?
I mean, it's Florida. Ashley Moody is a popular person. She'll be fine. Democratic socialists are not going to be terribly popular in Florida. I heard
Parts of Florida.
I heard Miss Nixon say, well, it's not about labels, which I find curious, since she joined the Socialist Party just this summer. She affixed the label to herself, only now to say, well, it's not really about labels. I actually think Ashley Moody's remarks were dead on. She's just reading out of the Democratic Socialist platform. When you align yourself with people who fundamentally would like to rip, what we know is how America works out root and branch, you're kind of anti-American. And all these socialists, whether they're in Florida or any other state, are going to face these same kinds of attacks. So I think Ashley Moody has the advantage here.
And that's really where this race gets interesting. Angie Nixon just proved that money and establishment support don't automatically win you a primary. A strong roots operation can beat a better funded opponent. But now, the electorate gets much bigger, the attacks get much harder, and Republicans are going to make democratic socialism a part of this race, whether Nixon wants that to define her or not. So what matters more now, the grassroots campaign that got her here, or the statewide political environment that she has to survive now? You let me know in the comment section down below. When until next time, this has been the Jay Ravato Show. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share so we can keep bringing you debates like this on the Jay Ravato Show.